This is a Ford Expedition 2000 model with a 4.6 Triton V8 engine that I proudly call my daily driver. Weighing in at 4,808 pounds to 5,177 pounds, it gets 15 to perhaps 20 miles per gallon if you don't run it too hard, and can tow up to 8,300 pounds without an issue. These vehicles were built for one purpose: to get you around, to haul your load, and get you to where you want to go and get the job done. As you can see, there are lots of room in this. We have cubby holes everywhere. We have a pretty decent premium sound system, and also lots of power door locks. We have power windows. This thing is loaded to the max. Even the back seats, completely leather. They are in pristine condition, which really nobody ever sits there. Even heater controls in the back for the people in the back seat can be real comfortable if you have some drinks. As you ride down the highway, looking out the windows and admiring all the beauty as the driver basically takes your life in his hands. And you can also fiddle with the controls in the back to annoy him. Here we have a nice cup holder on the armrests. That looks pretty nice, and look at how pristine condition the leather still is in this vehicle. Not bad for a 17-year-old SUV. Here's the radio. Why people do this, I don't know. This has a built-in CD player that, well, it's kind of out of date. Everybody uses memory cards now for music, but lots of cubby holes here too. There's another cubby hole just kind of hanging out there that I never use. We've got one there. We have another one over here on the passenger side. You can just put lots and lots of stuff in. And as you look at the radio, why people do this, I don't know. They took out the factory radio and put this thing in there that they call aftermarket radio. Speed wise, well, you know what, this thing still goes 0 to 60 in about 12 seconds. It's really nice, especially when you merge into traffic and you can just kind of mash down on it, hit that highway speed, 60 miles an hour in about 13 seconds, and you're right up with traffic. No problems merging whatsoever. But as you can see there, 60 miles an hour, about 1600 RPM, not bad for a 5-speed automatic transmission, and even climbing up hills, really not a problem. Sometimes it'll shift down to 4th gear, but most of the time it stays up in overdrive. Now the engine, I do like the engine in these SUVs, especially the 2000 models. Now when you get to 2002, you cannot check the transmission fluid like I'm doing right here. All the way up to 2002, you can pull the dipstick out and check the transmission fluid just like you're supposed to. But when you get to 2002, all the way up to 2000 into the newer vehicles, you can't check the transmission fluid. You basically have to crawl under it, take a plug out. Well, that's another video for another day. And also, I love the throttle here. A lot of these newer vehicles have what they call throttle by wire. It has a little motor that pulls that throttle forward when you smash on that gas, and that's how that works. This one here, it has a cable going to the throttle, which means if it breaks, you could simply fix it. But today, we have something called drive-by-wire. It's a system that BMW in 1988 developed on their 7 Series, which is another video for another time. But if you take care of the 4.6, run it easy, change the fluids, it will treat you very well, unless you have a 5.4, which they become pretty notorious for spark plugs just blowing out of the cylinders. Now, with anybody with a 4.6 will tell you, they have never really heard that story. But the bottom line is, if you take good care of it, change the oil, change the fluids, and run it easy, it will treat you very well. And it's a very common engine, and these engines will probably be around for a very long time. And just make sure when you check the oil, check the fluids, make sure you have enough to last you for quite some time, because it's easy to drive these big vehicles and realize that you're running low on oil, because they do consume just a little bit of oil and a little bit of transmission fluid. Because if you look under one, you will see drops now and then of transmission fluid and maybe antifreeze. which is pretty normal for a 17-year-old SUV. I mean, just look at mine. There's that massive transfer case, which this system is an all-wheel / four-wheel drive system, meaning I can take it in the four-wheel drive lockup or let the all-wheel drive system do its thing. And it's pretty large in the back. It's got a big trunk. You can open the glass by itself. And the gas tank, well, it's about 26 gallons. So if you want to go a long way and don't want to get out, well, fill the tank up and it'll get you about 350 miles down the highway, which is not really too bad, but I doubt you'll be in the vehicle that long. And for comfort, we do have an overhead temperature gauge, and it tells you the temperature in Fahrenheit and Celsius and which way you're going, north, south, east, or west. And that's it. Pretty basic stuff. But when you step back and look at this SUV, the front of it, it says, "I'm coming through. Look out. I have lots of metal. I have lots of protection, and I am going to protect my occupants because I am a steel roll cage on wheels, and I sit up high. And me, I'm about 6 foot tall, and you can see up to my knees is about 20 inches, so this thing sits high off the ground." I mean, really, if you were involved in an accident, would you rather be in something like this or something like this? I'll just leave this here. And just listen to this thing as it starts. You could be a blind person sitting in a parking lot and say, "Hey, that was a Ford starting up. It must be an Expedition with a 4.6 or a 5.4. Yeah, those sounds are pretty common with all these vehicles. They all sound alike. Although once we had to replace the ABS system on mine, and it's been fine ever since. The pedal would go to the floor, and we did a lot to it, and eventually figured out it was related to the ABS, but it runs great now, and I'm very happy with it. I have good brakes, and going down country roads, if you see a little squirrel jumping out in front of you, it stops really quick, and you don't have to push the pedal very hard. It does have four-wheel disc brakes, 17, 235, 70, 17-inch wheels roll this baby down the highway. But on most models, if you look in the back, you see these little hooks there. Well, that is where you could put a third row seat in the back. But when I got this vehicle, I never really had one, and I really don't have any use for one. And the other down pitfall of the SUV was rocker panels. They were notorious for rotting out. The Expeditions, the Ford Explorers, mine were pretty bad, but you know, I had a little welder and I fixed it pretty good. Looks pretty nice there. And of course, if you want to find out any information on your sticker about your vehicle, you got to turn sideways and look at it. Why they glued it sideways, who knows. The jack, well, you got a little hole by the license plate. You go in the side here and you take this little panel off, and you have a jack that kind of sits there, and there's a secondary handle that you have to take out along with that. Then after you kind of find out where the jack is here, you got to go around front, raise the hood, and you got this long handle that you got to fish out. Then you take all that in the back and you kind of connect it together, and you jack the vehicle up, and you can get your tire off right there. You see underneath there, that's where the spare tire is. So that is how you take that off. You stick that little jack in that hole and twist, and that tire will drop down eventually. On a lot of these Expeditions, and mainly the Ford Explorers, the back glass had some issues. Once I raise it up here, you will see there is a bolt that actually goes up into the glass onto a hinge, and that attaches that large window in the back. And you see that strut there. Once that bolt there would break, that strut would put so much pressure on the glass, and it would completely shatter that glass, and you'd have to go out and spend about $400 to $500 to replace it. Now, they did fix the problem in later years. Now, as for the front end, I always thought it was pretty decent looking. It had these big, massive headlights. But one thing that always annoyed me, especially in the late 90s, one thing I noticed was the fog lights on the bottom. They're oval. Why did they start making oval fog lights? I always thought the best looking fog lights were the round ones. Yes, round fog lights. Now, I did find out later you can buy a kit to put in the bottom fog lights to make them round. But me, I'm just old school, I guess. Recall history? Well, yeah, there's been some, and what vehicle doesn't have some recall history? Well, the Expedition has been recalled 82 times over the last 20 years. The most frequent year was 2012, and 2000. Just happens to be the year I own here, but you know what? That didn't really bother me much, because by the time I had it, a lot of the things had been fixed by previous owners, and like I said, I had to replace the brake pads, and I had to maybe replace the intake gasket and an ABS pump. But you know, you can get those things fairly cheap nowadays. You don't have to go straight to the dealer and spend hundreds of dollars. You just go to your local junkyard, get a good part and stick on it for 20% of the price, and you got a great running SUV. And just think, you don't have to pay maximum insurance on new vehicles. You get an older vehicle like this, yeah, you only spend $40-50 a month, at least where I live, for insurance, and it's not a problem. If you get into an accident, well, if it's totaled, you take the little extra money and go out and buy another vehicle, and you're good to go. And if the vehicle you buy, if it's used, well, you just go in a circle again. I don't like paying high insurance fees, especially on new cars. I really never understood how a lot of people pay those exorbitant fees on new cars. Maybe that's why a lot of people are broke. But for me, I still have some cash in my pocket because I own a 17-year-old SUV. And having said that, it has never let me down once. Even with a 373 rear end, it cruises down the highway fairly nicely. And it even looks pretty good sitting in a field by itself. But as I'm sitting at the light, one thing I did notice, I saw a little tiny car go by, a little smart car, and I'm thinking, boy, I wouldn't want to be in an accident in that thing. Then, boom, there goes another Expedition. And I'm not picking on other little tiny cars. It's just, I know where my comfort zone is, and it's inside of a cage that will protect me, or at least give me a fighting chance in an accident. But with lots of room, I can haul things. You can haul just about anything you want. The seats do lay down. You got this massive plug in the back where you can hook up your trailer, and I have a 10,000-pound sea trailer that I can haul around. It does a pretty good job. Now granted, the 4.6 doesn't have a lot of power, so if you're going to be doing a lot of towing, my advice would be get the 5.4. It is a workhorse of this Expedition. A lot of people that tow boats, tow their trailers, and even tow heavy equipment will use the 5.4. And just be careful of the spark plugs, because, yeah, I hear stories that they do pop out once in a while. And of course, you got to crawl underneath to get your spare, but that gives you more room in the back to store your things and also put boxes and move around, because we all know if you buy an SUV this large, you're probably going to be hauling a lot of stuff around, and you have lots of places to put things and keep things in order. Then once you get everything inside, then you'll forget about it. Then when you get ready to get rid of the SUV, you'll say, did I leave my charger in that when I sold it? I can't find it. And it's probably, you know, stuffed in one of those cubby holes that you have forgotten about. So in a nutshell, the 2000 Ford Expedition 4.6 Triton V8 engine, well, the Triton is just a name they gave it, sort of like the Chevrolet Fortec engine, really doesn't mean much. What really matters is these V8 engines have been around a long time. The 4.6, 5.4, Ford's V8 engines, they have really stood up to the test of time, and they're still going. Yes, times are good right now. These engines are easy to work on. They went from 2 valves to 3 valves, now even 4, and they're getting pretty complicated. Who knows, maybe by 2020, you'll have to be a mad scientist and a PhD and have a supercomputer just to change a spark plug in these. But for now, like I said, times are good. Let's enjoy it while we can, because we have something that we can fix and control ourselves. So I hope you have enjoyed this little review on the Expedition. And like I said, this is my daily driver. I could have went on forever for techs and specs, but sometimes we just got to sit back and enjoy what we have. And if you like anything, comment and tell me what you think. Like and subscribe. And I'll just leave this here.